When I first began addressing my lower back pain, I quickly realized that intensity was not the answer. In fact, the more I tried to push myself with hard workouts or aggressive routines, the worse my body felt the next day. What made the real difference was learning the power of consistency in gentle movement. It didn't matter that I wasn't lifting heavy weights or running long distances. What mattered was showing up every day with simple motions that my body could handle and benefit from. These light movements slowly built the strength and flexibility my lower back needed, without overwhelming my muscles or joints. At first, I started with just 5 minutes in the morning. That small routine became a turning point. A few slow stretches to loosen my spine, side bends to wake up the core, and gentle rotations to improve mobility felt like nothing big in the moment, but over time they became the foundation of healing. The tightness in my back, which once felt constant, began to ease because I was finally giving my body the attention it had been asking for. It wasn't about doing everything at once, but about staying consistent day after day, trusting the process instead of chasing quick fixes. Gentle walking was another simple yet powerful addition. Even if it was just around the living room or a short stroll outside, walking kept my blood flowing and prevented stiffness from creeping back in. For anyone over 50, walking is one of the most underrated tools for maintaining health. It doesn't require equipment, it isn't stressful on the joints, and it engages the muscles that support the spine. By making walking a daily habit, I noticed not only less pain but also more energy throughout the day. It turned out that small, steady movement was far more effective than sitting still and waiting for the pain to pass. My body began to respond to this gentle rhythm, rewarding me with flexibility and less discomfort as the days went on. The real secret behind consistency is not how long you move, but how often. I learned that 10 minutes of stretching every day did more for me than one intense workout a week. My muscles began to trust the routine, my joints adapted, and my back pain gradually reduced. It became less about forcing myself to exercise and more about creating a daily ritual that I looked forward to. I began to notice small changes like waking up with less stiffness, being able to bend more easily, or even sitting longer without feeling pain. These little improvements were proof that consistent gentle movement was working, and they motivated me to keep going. What surprised me most was how consistency in light exercise also improved my confidence. For years, I had believed that aging meant slowing down and accepting pain as a permanent part of life. But as I continued these simple daily practices, my mindset shifted. Each small movement reminded me that my body was still capable of healing and growing stronger, even past 50. It wasn't about perfection or pushing limits, but about steady care. I began to understand that my body didn't need to be punished to get results. It needed to be nurtured through regular, kind, and patient movement. This shift not only reduced my lower back pain, but also gave me a renewed sense of control over my health and my future. When I started making changes to my diet, I realized that food was either fueling my pain or fueling my healing. For years, I had overlooked the impact of what I was putting on my plate, assuming that back pain was only about posture or exercise. But once I focused on nutrition, I discovered that the way I ate could directly influence how much energy I had, how well my body recovered, and how my joints and muscles felt day to day. The first shift I made was simple: adding more fresh fruits and vegetables. These foods are packed with vitamins, minerals, and antioxidants that reduce inflammation, which is often the hidden cause behind lingering aches and stiffness. I started noticing that on days I ate more greens, berries, or citrus, my body felt lighter and more mobile, compared to the sluggishness I used to feel after processed or heavy meals. Protein became another important part of the puzzle. Lean sources like fish, chicken, beans, and nuts gave my muscles the building blocks they needed to stay strong and supportive of my spine. At first, I underestimated how vital protein was, but as I added it regularly into my meals, I found that recovery after even light exercise became quicker. My muscles didn't feel as sore, and my energy levels stayed more stable throughout the day. Whole grains also became a key factor. Switching from white bread and sugary cereals to oats, brown rice, and whole grain pasta gave me a steady supply of energy rather than the ups and downs I used to get from refined carbs. This steadiness meant I could stay active longer and not feel drained halfway through the day. One of the most underestimated yet powerful changes was hydration. For years, I didn't drink enough water, and I thought fatigue and stiff joints were just part of aging. But once I began drinking more water consistently, I felt a noticeable difference. Staying hydrated lubricates the joints, supports spinal discs, and helps the muscles function smoothly. Even mild dehydration can trigger fatigue and make pain feel worse. I replaced sugary sodas and excess caffeine with water and herbal teas, and the change was remarkable. My energy was steadier, my concentration sharper, and my body simply felt more alive. Cutting down on processed foods was another turning point. Packaged snacks, fried foods, and refined sugars may be convenient, but they contribute to inflammation and rob the body of the nutrients it needs to thrive. I didn't eliminate them overnight, but I gradually reduced them and replaced them with wholesome options. When I craved something sweet, I chose fruit. When I wanted something crunchy, I reached for nuts or seeds instead of chips. Over time, my taste buds adjusted, and the healthier foods I once overlooked started tasting more satisfying than the processed ones. This wasn't about following a strict diet or depriving myself. It was about making choices that supported my health instead of harming it. The most powerful part of this journey was realizing that food is more than calories. It is medicine, energy, and vitality. Every meal became an opportunity to help my body heal and feel younger. The right foods reduced my inflammation, strengthened my muscles, and gave me the stamina to move with ease. More importantly, nourishing my body properly gave me hope. It showed me that even after 50, I still had control over how I felt every day, and that by choosing wisely, I could restore not only my back health but also my energy, my mood, and my overall quality of life. When I looked back at my old habits, I realized how much of my discomfort came from lifestyle choices I never thought twice about. For years, I would sit for hours at a time, whether working, watching television, or simply reading, without realizing how much strain this was putting on my lower back and overall health. The truth is, the body was never designed to stay still for long periods. It thrives on movement, even light movement, and the longer I ignored that fact, the more pain I felt. Making the shift to healthier lifestyle adjustments was not about drastic changes but about small, intentional habits that added up over time and gave me lasting relief and vitality. One of the first changes I made was standing up and stretching every half hour. At first, I had to remind myself with alarms or sticky notes, but soon it became second nature. Just 2 minutes of stretching or walking around the room loosened my muscles, re-energized my mind, and stopped that stiffness from setting in. Those tiny breaks throughout the day prevented the pressure from building up in my lower back, and I started to notice that by evening I wasn't as sore or tired as I used to be. That one adjustment, simply refusing to stay still for hours, made an enormous difference. Another important shift was learning to listen to my body instead of ignoring it. Before, I would push through pain or stiffness, thinking it was normal or unavoidable. But pain is the body's way of signaling that something needs attention. Instead of brushing it off, I began to respond with kindness. If I felt tightness, I stretched. If I felt weak, I rested. If I felt drained, I adjusted my posture or moved around. This simple awareness helped me prevent small discomforts from turning into bigger problems. It also gave me a sense of control because I no longer felt like my body was betraying me. I was finally working with it, not against it. Rest became another pillar of my lifestyle change. For years, I treated rest like a luxury, something I would get only after finishing all my tasks. But as I grew older, I realized rest was not just about relaxation. It was about recovery and healing. I stopped feeling guilty about going to bed earlier or taking short naps when I needed them. Quality sleep gave my muscles the time to repair, my joints the chance to recover, and my mind the clarity to stay positive. The difference between a restless night and a night of deep, restorative sleep was remarkable. On the nights I rested well, my back felt stronger and my energy lasted longer, which made me more active and motivated during the day. Another small but powerful change was adjusting my posture in daily life. I became mindful of how I sat, stood, and even how I carried groceries. Instead of slouching or putting all the weight on one side, I focused on keeping my spine aligned and my core gently engaged. These tiny adjustments took pressure off my back and made everyday activities less of a strain. Something as simple as placing both feet on the ground while sitting or lifting with my legs instead of my back protected me from unnecessary pain. Over time, these lifestyle changes stopped feeling like chores and became natural habits. They weren't complicated, and they didn't require special equipment or training. They were small, consistent choices that fit easily into my day and gave me long-lasting results. What surprised me most was how these adjustments improved not just my back, but my whole life. I felt more energetic, more mobile, and more confident. I wasn't waiting for pain to strike anymore. I was actively preventing it by living differently. The best part was realizing that simple, mindful changes could make me feel healthier, more youthful, and more in control of my body than I had in years. For the longest time, I underestimated the role of sleep in my health and recovery. I thought of it as just something I did at night, a routine that happened after the day was over. But when I began struggling with lower back pain and low energy, I realized that sleep wasn't just rest. It was medicine. Quality sleep was the missing piece that allowed my body to truly heal and reset. The nights I stayed up late, tossing and turning or cutting corners on sleep, always led to mornings of stiffness, foggy thinking, and more pain. The nights when I allowed myself deep, consistent rest brought mornings that felt lighter, my movements easier, and my energy more stable. Sleep became one of the most powerful tools in reducing my pain and keeping me active. One of the first changes I made was committing to a steady sleep schedule. I used to go to bed at different times every night, sometimes late into the evening, and my body never had a rhythm to follow. By setting a regular bedtime and wake-up time, my body began to fall into a natural pattern, which helped me fall asleep faster and wake up feeling more refreshed. It felt like my body was thanking me for the consistency. Over time, this routine became second nature, and my energy during the day improved significantly. Another important factor was creating an environment that supported good sleep. I used to leave the television on or scroll through my phone before bed, not realizing how much that light and noise disrupted my rest. When I started shutting off electronics an hour before sleep, dimming the lights, and keeping my bedroom cool and quiet, I noticed I drifted into sleep more easily. These simple changes turned my bedroom into a place for true recovery rather than just a place to crash after a long day. My back especially benefited, because with deeper sleep, my muscles relaxed fully and my body had the chance to repair itself. The position I slept in also made a big difference. I learned that sleeping on my stomach strained my lower back, so I shifted to my side with a pillow between my knees or on my back with a pillow under them. These small adjustments supported my spine, kept it aligned, and prevented the morning stiffness that had once been my daily reality. Over time, this new way of resting felt natural, and I began waking up without the aches that used to greet me every morning. Beyond the physical changes, quality sleep had a powerful effect on my mood and mindset. Before, when I was constantly tired, I felt irritable, unmotivated, and less hopeful about my progress. But with better rest, I noticed my patience grew, my motivation returned, and I approached each day with more positivity. The same exercises that once felt difficult now felt manageable because I had the energy to do them. The same dietary changes that felt overwhelming now seemed easier because I wasn't battling fatigue. Sleep acted as a foundation that supported every other healthy choice I was making. What surprised me most was realizing that sleep wasn't a reward I had to earn after being productive all day. It was an essential part of my health, as important as movement and nutrition. By respecting my body's need for rest, I allowed it to heal in ways I hadn't thought possible. My back pain lessened, my energy grew, and I felt younger and stronger in my daily life. It reminded me that sometimes the simplest solutions, like giving ourselves the gift of consistent and restorative sleep, can create the biggest changes in how we feel and how we live. When I first began this journey of overcoming back pain and reclaiming my health, I quickly discovered that the biggest battles weren't just physical. They were mental. My mindset determined whether I stayed consistent or gave up when progress felt slow. For years, I focused only on what I had lost as I grew older. I couldn't move the way I once did. I tired more easily, and the pain in my back seemed to remind me daily that youth was behind me. That negative perspective drained my motivation and made every effort feel like a burden. But when I shifted my mindset to focus on what I could do, even the smallest improvements, everything began to change. Instead of being frustrated that I couldn't exercise for an hour, I celebrated being able to move pain-free for 10 minutes. Instead of complaining about stiffness, I focused on the fact that stretching made me feel looser each day. These small victories built momentum, and momentum built confidence. Every improvement, no matter how small, became proof that progress was possible. This positive reinforcement fueled me to stay consistent with my routines, and over time, those little steps added up to real transformation. The power of mindset also showed up in how I approached setbacks. There were days when pain returned or when I felt too tired to follow through on my habits. In the past, I would have seen this as failure and spiraled into discouragement. But with a more positive outlook, I reminded myself that one tough day didn't erase weeks of progress. I learned to treat setbacks as temporary, not permanent, and to view them as part of the journey instead of the end of it. This shift kept me from quitting, and it taught me patience, which was just as important as discipline. Another piece of the puzzle was gratitude. It might sound simple, but taking a moment each day to be thankful for my body and the progress I was making kept me motivated. Gratitude helped me see my body not as broken, but as capable of healing and adapting. I began to appreciate that even though I was over 50, I could still become stronger, more flexible, and more energetic. This gratitude created a sense of respect for my body, and that respect made me more willing to care for it through proper diet, exercise, rest, and healthier habits. Visualization also played a role in strengthening my mindset. I pictured myself moving freely without pain, walking longer distances with ease, or waking up feeling refreshed. These mental images gave me something to work toward, and they reminded me daily of what was possible. The more I focused on these positive outcomes, the more motivated I became to stay consistent with the small steps required to reach them. It was no longer just about reducing pain, it was about building a better, healthier version of myself. The shift in mindset didn't just impact my back, it improved my entire outlook on aging. I stopped seeing 50 as a limit and started viewing it as an opportunity to take control of my health. With greater awareness and wisdom, I began to see aging not as a decline, but as a chance to prove how resilient the body and mind can be when treated with care. This new perspective gave me energy, confidence, and even joy in the process. In the end, the real transformation came from within. My body grew stronger, yes, but it was my mind that unlocked the ability to keep going and to believe in my progress. By focusing on the positives, celebrating small wins, and refusing to let setbacks define me, I created a cycle of motivation that continues to drive me forward. Pain no longer controls my life because I no longer allow negative thoughts to control my efforts. The mindset shift was the most powerful fix of all, proving that age doesn't define what's possible. Attitude does.